John Lennon was just as lost, confused, and alone as any of us, perhaps even more so. But in his emptiness there were answers. Out of his pain and longing there was light. Fame, money, and even talent were ultimately only a diversion for the troubled musician. John was clearly a man in search of himself. That he gave in to the allurements of the world cannot now be held against him. The Beatles had virtually anything they wanted thrown at their feet by the time they were 22, who would not have become similarly entangled. Like Paul McCartney, who lost his mother at 15, after Julia Lennon was killed, something inside of John was frozen. And however much he tried to trip, smoke, or copulate his way around it, the looming monolith of his mother's lost love was always before him. When Lennon cried out for love and peace, it was because he needed it so desperately in his own turbulent, emotionally empty life. The greater truth of John Lennon was ultimately about loss. The loss of his father and mother, of his youth, his innocence, his privacy, of the Beatles, of his freedom, of his masculinity, and most poignantly, of himself. Why then does this talented, tragic hero so possess our thoughts even 16 long years after his passing? It is because we are on the same journey of self-discovery. We too have experienced loss and longing, all themes clearly evident in John's soul-stirring music and challenging statements. For those who love John, the best way to express it now is to finish the great quest he started. Find yourself, look inside. Let his powerful words and music guide you, but never lose sight of the final goal. The only certainty is our time together in life. Use it wisely. Give love, live peace, honor your highest self, respect all life in every form. Transform yourself into a being of compassion and comfort for those in need. Do that, and you will not only pay tribute to the great undying spirit of John Winston Lennon, but also to yourself. It's what John always wanted for himself, and for all of us as well. In this unreleased interview, a Dutch TV reporter actually joins John and Yoko on the bed.
Some of them are more equal than others. Yes, I'd like to ask they're all infinite. They all have equal possibilities. You would subscribe to that without philosophy? Because I'm not much of a philosopher. No, me neither. Just play a reporter. I'm just a plain singer. It's the kind of interview that you love as a reporter as you don't. No, I mean, we did this today to do any kind of interview that people want to do, whatever they want. But that's we're here to do. See all this, I tend to think that sensibility is gone out of it. No, but I think there's something, it's all something beautiful about it, you know. All on the Beatles tours, everything like that. There's all some, people have laughed. Feel the thought of having a time, we got the right photograph or the right interview, and we always had a laugh because there's always some photographer fell over or got the wrong pictures.
And also, there are many people in the world who are sensible enough. When you report it, they will see,
No, he means that this is a madhouse, but it's good, everything's too serious.
You're sitting here and saying those were the days, my friend.
Oh, yeah.
There's kind of an impression that you are a very sensible, very grown-up approach to this whole thing.
Well, I'm pretty old now, she's pretty old, but we've got a sense of humour, and that's what this is about, partly.
And the world needs sense of humour, more than anything else, because the world is getting more and more violent and tense, So instead of becoming violent about it and say, stop the war or something, with violence, it's better to sort of say, let it spring, let's stay in bed, etc. To laugh.
The thing, though, that flabbergasts Dutchman a bit is, what do you see in Holland as a honeymoon country?
It's a beautiful place, and Amsterdam's a place where a lot of things happen with the youth, It's an important place, Everywhere's important, but Amsterdam's one of them, and there's a few centres in the world. Amsterdam's one, and for you.
Many alive, vitally alive youth, with high ideals for the world.
Provos and the white bicycles. I mean,
are those ideas that appeal to you?
Yes, the more peaceful of the ideas that the youth have. And if we have any influence on youth at all. We'd like to influence them in a peaceful way.
And communicate with them, I mean,
say hello to them.
influence each
We're
other,
here to say hello to people in Amsterdam or Holland.
I should like to ask my last question, which really is not much of a question, but it's a question though. The whole approach, your approach towards life is somewhat in a non-conformistic way. Now, what do you see in a so conformistic institution as marriage?
Because intellectually, we know marriage is nowhere that a man should just say, here you're married when we've been living together for a year before it. But romantically and emotionally, it's something else. It's like when our divorce papers came through, it was a great relief, and we didn't realise how much of a relief it was going to be till Peter came up and said it's over. And it was only a bit of paper saying it's over. We'd made the marriage over by living together while we were still married to the other two people. But just the fact that somebody said it is over is a relief, and the fact that we got married was another kind of, not relief, just kind of joy, and it was very emotional. The actual marriage ceremony, we both got very emotional about it, and we're both quite cynical and quite hard people, but very soft as well. So everybody's a bit both ways, and it was very romantic.
I should like to have your reaction on this, Mrs. Lennon.
Yes,
That's the way you are
Yeah,
called
it's
now.
beautiful.
I got this ring, and of course a ring is to many people in contemporary world is a laugh maybe, but I sort of broke down, I felt so good about it. And it's actually, when I think of it, it's an old ritual, but a very functional, basic ritual, I mean, it has a lot to do with sex, etc., sort of putting this in and say, well...
Stop it.
But don't, it's
I'm joking.
It's kind of loose though.
Yes, we're having it fitted here.
It's almost like, well, you're my possession, etc., and it's very nice. And this world is becoming too intellectualized. And that's why there's violence, and tension of that kind. I mean, people should be more naive and happier in a way, and enjoy many rituals, without being too cynical about it, I think. And we are, really tough and cynical people, but in that way, we're sort of criticizing ourselves.
I might as well ask you my last question now. You were talking about marriage as an institution, and now the $64,000 question is, what about the kiddies?
Well, we were thinking we might be nice if we conceived one in Amsterdam. We might call it Amsterdam or Peace or Hair or Bed. It'd be beautiful.
Yes.
What do you think about it, Mrs. Lennon?
Yes, I mean, it would be nice to conceive a child in this bed, actually. But, we don't have particular plans yet. I mean, we just go on, living. Living is the happiness.
We have been intruding upon your privacy a bit. Thanks very much indeed for your kind.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank
Pleasure. Bye-bye.
Fijn, dankjewel.
Dank u wel.
Dank u wel. Would you care to sing Those Were the Days, my friend?
Okay. Those were the days, my friend, I thought they never. That's all I know. Okay.
Okay, fine. Now let's go. Now I think I
Thanks
have
very much indeed. Have fun.
Pleasure. Thank you.
I'm
staying in bed 7 days.
Because for peace.
For peace?
Yeah.
It means bed peace?
Yes, well, an event is called a peace, P-I-E-C-E, but it's a pun.
And happy?
Hairpiece is to tell people to grow their hair for peace until we get peace, maybe. Just keep growing it, all the hair you have,
This is our way of protesting the violence in the world,
rather than marching.
Violence in Vietnam and...
Violence in London, violence in Amsterdam. And
What kind of
trying to-
violence do you have in London?
Anyway.
Just the violent ideas coming about how to change things.
Revolution through violence,
I don't believe in that.
We don't believe in that. We feel that, so let's just have
Good
a
afternoon. Hello.
Mr. John, where is your marriage ring?
They don't sort of do it in England.
Well, the women get...
Only the...
Yeah, I mean, I'll wear one if you like me to.
can borrow mine. Why did you choose Amsterdam to stay 7 days in bed?
Because it's one of those important youth centres.
Youth centre?
Youth.
Youth,
There's the Provos and the white bicycles, and there's a certain major cities, and this is one of them.
Have you heard of Fantasio in Amsterdam, the youth centre?
No. With the details we don't know, we just pick up the vibrations, which city's doing what.
And you feel that's something happening?
Sure, I mean, everybody knows something's happening.
Very vital youth,
How do you do it?
alive.
Do you think you're really going to get a chance to see Holland at all?
We're not trying to get a chance. We're giving
Holland
Holland a chance to see us.
Yes.
These 7 days, you receive people? I mean,
Yes, sure.
which
sure.
people?
Depends who they are, you know.
Oh yeah, friends.
Friends.
People
Interested parties.
Yes,
Yes,
people
yes.
who are interested in us and people who have the same feeling with us, you know,
Oh, yeah.
to make peace and communicate to the world about that.
In this clip, Lennon discusses the creation of the groundbreaking music that made him a superstar.
That's the age I come from, you know. I mean, there was a jazz age, and I came from the rock and roll age, so it's instilled into me. And I think the records I make now that aren't rock records are rock records, really, like Come Together and Cold Turkey is rock and roll to me, only present day.
One of the numbers the Plastic Ono Band played in Toronto was the old Carl Perkins tune, Blue Suede Shoes. John tells us why.
I'd been singing it for 3 or 4 years, and I'd given it to George like before the Beatles made it. So it ended up George's song, but it was originally mine, you know. I liked Carl Perkins and Elvis. I preferred Carl Perkins' version. And I've sung it many, many times. I only just remember the words, though. And I'm pretty nervous on it, too, you can tell me. It's just a relaxed by Dizzy Miss Lizzy. Yeah. It's all right, it's human, you can hear it. And then it calms down a bit about Dizzy Miss Lizzy.
And what was the gig itself like? Here's John's take.
There was 100 or 200,000, something like that. And it was very peaceful, and I don't know whether the intro you can hear he says, "Here comes the Plastic Ono, light up your matches," or something. When we came on, all the people lit up matches. It was a fantastic sight, because it was dark when we played, and the whole crowd lit up matches.
In this rare piece, Lennon discusses the unexpected impact of Sgt. Pepper and what it meant to him.
Sgt. Pepper, the actual song, was a rock song.
Yes,
Just happened to sing about Sgt. Pepper, which happened to be the title, which happened to tie up with the whole concept, you know, but it was still just some, you know, some songs, you know, some fast and some slow. But the packaging, the sort of overall image of it was the difference. And the linking of the tracks and all that, but it still didn't make the songs themselves any different. Yeah. People recorded them individually, you know, as songs, and it wasn't, people didn't record Getting Better from the opera Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, you know, they just recorded Getting Better as a pop song, you know. Well, Sgt. Pepper was significant in our lives, and therefore our LPs reflect where we're at the moment, you know. And Sgt. Pepper reflected the changes that we've gone through, and you know what we're looking forward to. And so it was significant. I'm not putting it down. I think it was, but it wasn't an opera. You know, any one of the numbers could stand in their own right individually. It's like a box of chocolates. In Sgt. Pepper, we wrapped the chocolates up and you know, put nice papers or wrapped 2 chocolates together. But all we had, in fact, was a box with chocolates in still. You know.
Throughout 1969, Lennon was extremely close with Appleman Derek Taylor. In this interview, listen carefully, and you'll hear both Derek and Yoko adding their 2 cents worth.
I can never go anywhere without being attacked. And then I think, well, if you really wanted to, you could shave your hair bald, shave off your moustache, and go to Egypt or India. So who are you kidding? You know, we say, well, I want to live in England because I was born here. Then I wouldn't be myself, that's the reason I give. But if myself wants incognito so much, myself would be that bald, shaved man in the middle of India. So
that's like losing identity too. So that's like, you know, works out 2 ways, doesn't it?
yeah, so that's where it's at, really. Of course, there isn't Beatlemania going on, and because I'm acting more naturally, whatever that is, I don't have to keep up any image, you know. I mean, I'm acting as an artist now, as an individual, and I'm not responsible for Beatles' image or anybody else's, and I don't have to sign autographs unless I feel like, you know, and all that. So they're beginning to accept that, you know. There's 1 or 2 people get uptight and things like that. But I just have to stop it, because as a Beatle, it was either sign everything and be everything they wanted, and always smile and always react to high and all that, or we went the other way, which was hiding and wouldn't see anybody, wouldn't see the press, kept the gates locked,
But now I do it on whim, you know, just let it roll. The only friends I got are the sort of the Beatles and the Derricks and the Neil and the Peter Brown that have been with us over the years, and a few more people I've picked up, you know, here and there. But people can be hangers-on and friends, you know. I've had hangers-on that have been friends that have dropped off, you know, because we didn't have enough to give each other. I must have something from a friendship, you know. And we picked up a few new ones sort of from Yoko's side of life that are so determined not to be hangers-on. They don't want to know. They pretend Beatle doesn't exist. Well, Derek sort of put in a nutshell the other day, really. He said a good, intelligent friend, whether he worked for us or not, which he would be, you know. I mean, there's certain things I'd ask him advice on, you know, and discuss with him, or be pleased to see him about, you know. But
you've got to have a hook in friendship. It's not really enough just to... There's got to be some good thing you can get going on it.
Yeah, when you're older there has to be, because when you're younger all it needs is somebody to go to the pictures with, you know, or get pissed with. But when you're older the relationship's got to sustain through a few years, you know, that I could go away for 4 years and come back and relate the story to Derek, and there wouldn't be a big gap between us. That sort of hangers-on would have lost, they would stay at the level they were when we last had them hanging on. You know, they sort of, the glory rubs off on them and they turn into sort of something or other, and they go off into swinging London, you know. But I'm a sucker for people, you know. I'm not very good at, I go by people's faces, and if they look straight, you know, I just believe in them, and I've had a lot of bad experience like that, you know. But it hasn't hurt me too much, just sort of, oh really? Yeah. Is that what they wanted? You know, and all that. And so between us we try and watch for it. We discuss everything in minute detail, you know.
But it's good
about everybody we meet, and you know, what do they want, or they conning us, because I've been conned all my life, you know, since I was a Beatle.
When he said the Beatle that he went through, he you know, merely meant the Beatlemania, you know, era, you know. But I think everything has a natural course, you know, and when it's necessary they exist, you know. When it's not necessary it goes. So the fact that it's going on means that there's still that necessity, and it's good, you know, that's good.
Because the Beatles are always discussing, should we go on or shouldn't we? What are we together for now? And when it gets down to it, I like playing rock and roll, I like making rock and roll records. Now, I have either a choice of, if I want the whole LP to myself, is to get a few musicians together. Now, I know that I've played with other musicians, just very rarely, but I've occasionally played with them. It needs some work together to get anything good going. You know, I don't like session men at all. I try not to use them. I don't like violinists or anything these days. I try not to use anybody but the Beatles. And if I wanted to make a record, I'd choose the Beatles. You know, I can say to Ringo, give me Bebopalula, you know. So therefore, we've got that going, you know. And even from a commercial point, when we discuss it, we think, now, what's the biggest selling name? Beatles, or John Lennon and the Fabs, or George Harrison and the Fabs? Where's our biggest market? Is Beatles. Who are our closest friends? Beatles. Who do we have most arguments with? Beatles. So Beatles is it, you know.
Here the press inquires if indeed there are any eventualities in which John would advocate violence as a viable solution.
All violence, whether it's local violence in the back alley, or student violence, or any violence. Vietnam's is really a manifestation of the world's violence, like the First World War was, or Hitler was. And we're anti-violence, you know, full stop.
Here John discusses Apple and the big business of rock and roll.
Well, I always kept 24 hours a day hours for work, you know. It just so happens I find it convenient to do it here, you know. As a Beatle, it was a 24-hour job, you know, and it still is as a Beatle, and as Peacenik, Freak, John and Yoko, you know, it's the same gig.
They're both very...
Except for this happens to be our business as well, our Beatle business and Apple, so we do both, you know. Apple business is doing okay now that we have Klein and good people to look after it, and Platts, David Platts. And the Beatles are taking a break at this point of time. I should have been in America now, because Paul and George, I think George still is, but they're on holiday, you know. Like Ringo's in the Bahamas too, so I might spoil his holiday for him. We hope to go around for a major places in the world, you know, and promote peace.
And why the Bahamas for this particular protest, Mr. Lennon?
We're going to the Bahamas because at the moment we can't get in the States, you know, and the reasons given are various. And we're going to the Bahamas to promote peace. We're trying to get to the States to promote peace. That only, non-violent protest, you know. And I think the States are afraid that we'll go over and rouse the kids up, you know, which we don't intend to do at all. We intend to try and calm the place down, you know. I think the States need us, you know, and we can help. And I don't see what reason besides, okay, there's the offence bit, that I can get in, you know, you're allowed in, Donovan's in, and it's the same bit, and there was mitigating circumstances allowed by the judge here. Why can't they accept that? Now, anything more about the visa, I can let your people know in the Bahamas, because there's still a chance, but I'm going to keep trying a bit nearer this time, and a bit louder, and a bit more publicly. But there might be some more fun about the visa, which I'll tell you about in the Bahamas, you know, backstage details. We're going to do a 7 days lie-in again, and talk to the press, and then all the people are interested in the communication world, you know, either radio, TV, newspapers, anything, and tell them a few stories about peace. We achieved a lot, you know. A, we relieved some tension in the world by giving a laugh. B, we've had many, many letters from all walks of life backing us, from many different people. C, we've been approached by a lot of the major peace movements to see if we can inject any life into them as they go round in circles. And that's just the start. We threw a stone in the water, and the ripples are still rippling, you know, and now we're going to throw another stone in, same message tied to the stone, and see what happens then, you know. And we don't intend to stop till peace is declared, you know. And the main complaint about the bed event was that, you know, it's okay for them to stay in bed. They can afford it. Anybody can afford to stay in bed, especially taking a honeymoon or a holiday. And if some old woman did it before we'd done it and announced in Lancashire, I'm going to stay in bed for peace, the press would have been around like hot flies. Or not hot flies, like flies around a hot cake, you know, saying, what is this old freak doing, you know? And so all we're doing is giving people inspiration to do protest against violence in a non-violent way. And all the all the marches did was get front-page news about violence from the police or from the crowd or whatever. And violence begets violence, and we say, if you want peace, you've got to get it peacefully. We'd like to see the President and give him some acorns to plant for peace as a symbol of world peace. At least let the trees grow, you know, and acorns are a seed and a very symbolic thing, you know, and it's also a positive move towards peace, and there need be no discussions about what size table or which field to put it in. You can just plant it, and that's a positive public move towards peace, besides just saying, I'd like to start talking about it. We'll mail them as well, but we thought taking them was make sure they get it, you know. We'll mail them. See, if we got to the States, we might have mailed them from the UN, say, you know, where everybody's in one pile almost, except for China and a few outsiders. Yeah, the acorns are waiting for us with all the parcels, names and everything, but we thought if we can give them personally to one or two world leaders and post them to the other people, then it have more effect than us just having one shot in the paper of us posting acorns which might get lost or not acknowledged to be received.
One of the terms coined by John back in the late 60s was philosoph-rock, the meaning of which is, I believe, fairly obvious. Let's see what John had to say about it, however.
Philosoph-rock is like all that, the psychedelia that all the pop groups went through, you know, and that bit, and we went through it too. And it's valid, because it was an experience we all went through, but now sing Get Back, you know, instead of, you know, Get Back, Monkey, you know, to throw something in.
Oh, this is...
Most of the lyrics on the new album are just sort of straight, you know, I love you and you love me, and we're all together, you know, without the other bit. But that's it, you know, it depends how you feel. There's still one of them on it, I just have fun with the words, you know, and they'll all be digging about to see what it is, and it's exactly whatever you like, you know, because I just enjoy playing with words. But mainly it's just like the new single, Get Back, and Don't Let Me Down, I Love You, Don't Let Me Down, I Love You, you know. It's not fun, it's just, you know, fed up of that suit. And everybody's going through it. Dylan, you know, nobody's sitting down and planning the next move for where we're all going to go. Because everybody had enough of it, you know. It seems like, and everybody wants to kick out the jams, as they say. I believe they're saying over there.
Here, Mrs. Lennon speaks out on the profound benefit she achieved from linking up with John.
Well, my side of the benefit is pretty obvious, I suppose. You know, first of all, the obvious side is that, you know, he has created a whole era of this swinginess, etc. You know, before that there was nothing happening in London, you know, and he has a fantastic sense of humor. And my work tended to be very serious. Now, of course, I had my sort of sense of humor in some ways, but it's a kind of cynicism, maybe, you know, let's say cynicism that I had in my work. And then it was becoming a bit too serious for me to take, you know, and I was just sort of fed up with it in a way. And the fact that he was not only intelligent, but he had something plus intelligence, which is a way of thinking in life, you know, which made him different from the other intelligent people. And it's very interesting, you know, that sort of changing the world with sense of humor, you know, that kind of thing. And that liberated my thinking. Public reaction is something that I can't control, and I can't preconceive, you know. And so I don't decide my action on the preconception of as to how the public would react to it, you see. So I just can't do that, and I never did, you know. It's something else. And of course, because I'm interested in communication, because I feel that art is communication, communication is art, you know, it's that bit. I am, you know, very interested in public reaction, I suppose, you know, of my work and etc., of our work at this point. I don't think that side, I mean, our work, you know, is communicating independently. I mean, you know, that side has been destroyed at all. I mean, you know, communication is still going through, you know. I mean, they're laughing at us, etc., you know, criticizing us, etc. But despite that, you know, that's going through. Our message is going through, so it's all right. You know.
Here a reporter wonders, was Lennon as anti-war, anti-establishment, and pro-peace when he was first a Beatle?
You couldn't say I was a violent guy, you know. So I was anti-war then, but now the slogan is peace. You know, it's still anti-war. When we talked about what we think about war and all that,
Yes, thank you.
we came to the conclusion that peace is the alternative, you know. I mean, it's like knowing it already, but doing something about it. I mean, Yoko was doing it anyway, peace demonstrations in a way, but she wasn't allowed to do too much demonstration in England because she was an alien. You know, so
well, now I
she
can
was a
just about do everything.
Now she's married to me, we can do things like Amsterdam, you know, and we think that's a positive, real way of doing it, you know. And we went through a lot of months of thought of the best way for John Lennon and Yoko Ono to do something about peace, and the most effective and broad way of doing it was for us to dedicate our honeymoon to peace and blab off about it for 10 days to the press. And the press is like a letterbox. You post letters and some of them get through and some get dirty and some get lost. But it gets through if you send off 2,000 letters with the same message on. If I had a newspaper, I'd love it. You know, I think the press is. I just think TV is a bit more important now, that's all. But I've not anything against the press. You know, they're human beings. You know, and I've nothing against the police, they're human beings, but I get uptight about the same things anybody else does, you know.
I saw some very famous people got married recently, and they got like 15 minutes of TV coverage, you know, and something like that, and they were making a statement just to the effect that they're going to get married and they're happy about it or something like that. And I thought, well, while they're just saying, well, yes, I'm going to get married, you know, something daft as that, you know, why couldn't they just plug peace, like saying, you know, that's 15 minutes precious time of TV, you know, and the world is in this chaos and everything, and instead of, you know, announcing something personal as that, they could use that and say, well, and by the way, let's have peace, you know, by the way, why don't we stop violence? Why can't you say that, you know? So that's what we did, exactly. In other words, we're going to get the press around anyway. So why do we waste it on us, you know?
Saying it, you know. No, you know, the queens and the prime ministers and all the people in the public eye. Why don't they talk about it all the time, you know?
Instead of saying,
we might have a meeting about a meeting about having a meeting to talk about it. You know, why don't they just talk about it on that instance that they're talking?
Direct,
you know. Even if they tell the public what they're trying to do about the meeting, that the meeting is going to be the meeting. You know. Because actually it's like a dirty word, you know. And like, okay, the psychedelic period, etc. Everybody's saying make love, not war, but now, especially in America, they're saying kill the pigs. You know, and that establishment know how to play violence. You know, that they've been playing it for millions of years. And they're never going to win. The pigs happen to be other human beings, and if they think bringing back hanging to kill murderers is the answer, that's what they're saying, kill the pigs. They ought to bring back hanging and whipping them as stocks, you know. You can't have one without the other, really. But it's the same bit, you know. They're not going to make it, you know, like that. And so if they do make it violently, they take over the States or anywhere, they're going to have to smash it all down first, and then they're going to spend the next generation or so building it all up again, and if it's like Russia, and they build it up into another one, you know. And it's never, they always say, give peace a chance, and give non-violence a chance, because nobody ever has. You know, there's just nobody has ever tried it, you know, and they've tried all the revolutions.
I really think also that when I say intelligence plus something, you know, I mean, that's where John is different from others, and in that sense, I really think that John is really the greatest mind, you know, that I've met in a way.
Hello.
And
is Peter there?
The point is that he's playing
the guy
it
with
down,
the contract bit.
Playing it down.
Oh yeah, well he's left, you know. He's here now.
His intelligence.
Yeah. Listen,
instead of playing his intelligence,
okay, hang on a bit. I'll wait till he leaves.
He's playing the clown, you know.
Yeah, I'm just looking for a coat, but I did have it one stage.
What's it now or he did?
Playing the clown. Well, okay, I mean, you know, he's doing that now more so, I suppose, you know. Well, in other words, we're doing it now, all right? But I've never met a man who was doing that.
And it's okay, you'll see it when you get there, and he can
I was trying to do that, you know.
Yeah, I have that. Well, I really did check
I had a feeling always that all that the male race in the world is a little bit limited, you know.
Because the main thing is,
they tend to be too serious. They tend to,
you see.
You know, be too professional. Professional meaning limited, you know, one field, etc. That, you know,
it was just
having too much professional pride and being blocked by that, you know, having a mind block like that.
So
you know,
the guy that we got it from is hip, so we said, who's your solicitor? And the guy was pretty sharp and young, like in a small office, and only just getting going, but he was hip all right.
You know, as soon as they get hold of it,
but I haven't told
you know, I mean, the general type of man I consider is the clerk type, you know, who has one talent and trying to hold on to that.
We've added on the bottom,
and that goes with all the artists as well. You know, a painter holding on to one tiny idea and saying that he's a painter and building up his painting career on that one tiny idea, etc.
Well, you'll see, he'll explain
I've never done that myself, so I always thought that I was superior to male race.
The next one is
you know, male race, that is. And then I met this phenomenon.
Oh, he's fine, you know, but I think
that pretty versatile himself, you know, I mean, superbly so.
Harold. Yeah, but he is independent, you know, that's all right.
Isn't the type of male that I expected a male to be, you know. We're giving some laugh to the world, you know, as Lauren Hardy did, you know.
Generally, your average garden variety journalist in those days was pretty square and had a hard time appreciating the ingenuity behind the creation of the Lennon's various bed-ins. Here John is asked to go on record concerning the influence of the offbeat protests.
We've had thousands of letters from people who have been influenced by it, you know, and that's apart from just the good stuff in the press like cartoons, etc., etc. We appreciate the cartoons, whether they're for us or against us. You know, if it gives people a laugh is a release of tension. So we don't mind being Abbott and Costello for the world, you know, and we'll do that if it relaxes people. Anything we can do, we'll do it, you know. And so cartoons and everything are worthwhile. Any kind of picture of us, whether it's getting off a plane again or sitting in the office or whatever. You know, because we're talking about the essentials of life. And most newspaper headlines are not that essential. So we think that our propaganda is as important as the next man's, if not more, because we're talking just about peace and not about what size table. This is the most positive thing. The bed event was the most positive thing that our two minds, which are pretty well ticking, could think of, whether we appear as freaks or clowns. The effect was that everybody for that period was talking about peace. And since then, we threw a stone in the water and the ripples are still going round. And we've had various approaches from various different peace movements asking, what can we do? You know, looks like the marches are going nowhere, which is what we're saying. All you get is front page headlines of violence after the march. And, you know, we'll think up a few gimmicks for them too. So, I mean, people, what we did was say, John and Yoko are available for functions. You know, for peace functions, and that's what we did. So it doesn't matter whether they say we're freaks. We are freaks, you know, in their eyes, you know. But who's to judge what a freak is? You know?
And it gave a great sort of uplifting beat to the whole world, and the world was so tense, and now, you know, they started to smile again.
It's down to that. If the world was a party, and it was a bit miserable or a bit intellectual, everybody got onto one subject, you know, got like that. And some guy comes in a bit pissed or a bit happy, change the whole atmosphere, even if it's for 5 minutes, you know. And that's all we're doing, take the world as one big party, and they're all getting a bit like that, and everybody's talking about what to do, not doing anything. And we say we are doing something. We're the guy that comes in the room and cheers them up. Even our friends, the British press, you know, they're always knocking us and that, but when they meet us at London Airport, they're friendly faces, you know. I know that they've been seeing me come in for years in various disguises, and I know them as people, and what they write is vaguely what they think. It's not the same, and we know what the game is, you know. And in the song Ballad of John and Yoko, which is the Beatles' new song, I say, the press, when we got back to London, say it's good to have the both of you back. Nobody actually said that, but it was there in the room, you know.
The controversial Cold Turkey was another Lennon classic played by the Plastic Ono Band that long ago summer's eve in Toronto. John responds to a question about the number.
I hadn't decided on an arrangement or anything, and I just sang it over to the group, and because it was basically a 3-chord song anyway, they picked it up quite well, you know. It was just verse, chorus, verse, chorus. So we just really busked it, you know, and this one, Yoko was holding the words, but just out of vision, to sort of dodge off the mic to try and get one of the verses. So it's entirely different from the single, but you can see where the single came from, you know. It shows the basis of the single. Maybe that a more professional version of this would have been more commercial, but the single is how I wanted the song to go. And the screaming effect at the end is only a progression from the end of Strawberry Fields or the end of Walrus or Day in the Life, you know. And just the expression cold turkey is known amongst drug addicts, but cold turkey is also known amongst ordinary people, you know. Not just the meat. It's quite, not that exclusive to drug addiction. And I like words or expressions, and cold turkey happens to be one of them. I wrote a song called I'm a Loser when I picked up the expression around, like kick out the jams is a nice expression. I'd write something called that if there weren't so many of them, you know. And I like I'm a Loser, and Date Tripper I made up out of hearing about trips before I'd ever had anything to do with tripping, as is known. And I wrote a song called Day Tripper, you know. And because I like the words, but cold turkey, whatever it means suffering, or it can mean flu, you know, 3-day flu, or dying in Biafra. It can mean a lot of things besides anything to do with drugs, you know. It can mean whatever you want.
Few people realize that following John and Yoko's bed-ins in Amsterdam and Montreal, a third protest was planned for the Bahamas. For various reasons, however, it didn't quite come off. John's official explanation was that it was just too damn hot and much farther from the United States media pool than he expected. What follows is a never-before-heard press conference held on the eve of the Lennon's departure to the bed-in that never was.
Well, we've been trying to get in the States to do a peace mission, and we've been trying to get visas, you know, and it doesn't look like we're getting it so far. So we're going to the Bahamas to sort of blast off from the Bahamas, do a Cuba on the our way from the Bahamas. And the reasons and the behind-the-scenes bit about the visas, we'll let you know about in the Bahamas. We've got something to say about it, which we won't say yet till we find out, you know, give them a day. And the thing is, we want to go and do a peace mission, we want to take acorns to Nixon, that's all we want to do, but somebody doesn't want us to do it, you know, and so the Bahamas is the next best deal we could think of. And we'll probably do bed event there, which we did in Amsterdam, which was staying in bed a week, and we call it our second honeymoon, which we're having rather quickly after our first one. And we'll be doing that from the Bahamas, bed for a week, and then we'll be out and about a bit, waiting to hear about the States and trying to get friends inside to help us, you know. Because I think they think I'm going to go there and run around the streets naked, you know. The plan is just to promote peace in a non-violent fashion, and the States needs it. And it's the right time for two non-violent people to go. And why are they frightened of two non-violent people going? To promote non-violence. The situation's serious enough for them to be pleased with people that are going to say to the kids, don't break it. You know, which is a bit explicit in that letter. The kids are shouting, kill the pigs. And we're saying, you know, get off that and get back to make love, not war, you know. It's the only way out. And that's it, really, in a nutshell.
And we're not trying to say anything special, and it's just something to remind them, you know, remember love and peace. You know.
And give peace a chance. And we can't see that, you know, that's something for them to be frightened of. The circumstances which kept me out were the court case for the drugs charge. But as the judge accepted the mitigating circumstances, I don't see why the States can't, you know. And the British are under the impression that it's the Americans won't let me in, you know, and it's just a game that's going on called delaying tactics. So we waited a week almost. We've almost wasted 10 days trying to get out there. So now we're going to go as near as we can.
And what would Lennon do if he actually somehow managed to get into the U.S.?
Well, we hope to have an audience with Nixon and give him some acorns to plant for peace as a symbol of peace, you know. And we think that's a positive move towards peace. And we hope to go around the world doing that, if we can, you know. But we thought we'd start with America, as it was an English-speaking nation. You know.
In need of some...
And with the violence going on there. So that's what we would hope to calm some of that. If we have any influence over the kids and youth, which we do, it can be better felt if we're there. They think we're going to might inflame the youth, but we're not. We want to pacify everyone as much as we can.
John was also asked to enunciate his hopes concerning the Bahamas bed-in. Here's his reply.
We'll do 7 days in bed, in which we'll hold the 7-day press conferences, which is what we did in Amsterdam. For anybody who's interested, radio stations, TV, press, school mag, anyone who wants to know can get us there, you know. And we'd like, you know, the press from the north of America, as well as the south. That's why we'd like you to UPI it, you know, so we don't arrive there and then the nearest ones get there first. We'd like everybody to have pre-knowledge that we're there, so anybody who's interested can get over.
And now the question which has vexed all of the Beatles, second only to when are you all getting back together, and that is, what do your lyrics really mean?
Anything you like, you know.
Here John explains the creation of the now classic Ballad of John and Yoko.
I'm telling a story like newspaper, you know. I'm telling a story about John and Yoko, and therefore about everyone, because we're all one. I am he as you are me, and we are all together.
In hindsight, George Harrison's driving Old Brown Shoe is indeed one of the Beatles' most efficient and charismatic rockers. But what did John think?
Well, that's George's song, and I just dig the sound of it. I haven't really got into the lyrics, you know. I'm getting out this old brown shoe, baby, I'm in love with you. That's good enough for me.
Here, Lennon once again discusses the genesis of his films with Yoko, a near constant topic back in '69.
We've made about 7 films so far, and we've got them in a brown paper bag at the moment. We're trying to get distribution. Yoko and I are filming all the time, you know. We're making a film of this event, and it'll be an amazing film when you see the goings-on in the bedroom. We got a radio station in here. We got people chanting Hare Krishna. We got visitors coming in, one after the other, in all strange outfits. You'll dig it. We just got to get distribution for it. We maybe make an hour TV show, you know, sort of showing the bed in, the whole thing.
And what about the Beatles going back out on tour? Did John feel that would ever happen?
The Beatles are 4 middle-aged teenagers who've got to make a democratic decision on whether they go on tour or not, and we're not agreed on it, so I don't know when. But John and Yoko certainly perform. Paul's driving through Europe, last time I heard. Ringo's in the Bahamas, sort of half filming and half on holiday, and I don't know what George is doing. He's probably working.
One of the most original concepts ever to come out of Apple was Zapple Records. The so-called paperback label was designed to respond to topical subjects more quickly than a traditional company by releasing all sorts of experimental music and spoken word projects on a monthly basis and at a significantly reduced price. Lennon remembers.
We've got this new output on Apple, which is called Zapple, and John and Yoko have just made a new album on it, and it's out about a couple of weeks. And George's electronic album's out at the same time. And we're going to have people like poets, and, you know, it's called Zapple, so you know you get a surprise when you buy it.
In many ways, the Beatles' collective swan song, Let It Be, still holds up well as not only a very interesting album, but an insightful movie and also a well-designed, though impossibly rare, book. Here John mulls over the highs and lows of the experience.
We finished it, you know, and the most finished number on it was Get Back. We were doing this rehearsal for a show, which we never finished, so we got fed up and put the rehearsal out. And it sounds okay, you know, and there's chatting and messing about and all sorts on it. And then we got halfway through another album, so we stopped that. We got tired and took a break. It's a single LP, but this one's got a book with it, you know, sort of a whole book of us making the LP, and we also made a film of it at the same time, so we've got to get that together. Made a sort of documentary of us making the album, and we got 68 hours of film there, so we got to do a bit of work with it. All the traumas and the paranoia and all the different things that happen to you when you try and make a record. Might end up like Magical Mystery Tour, only this time it'll be on the air.
Geoffrey Giuliano is the author of some 30 internationally best-selling books on the Beatles, John Lennon, and other iconic musicians of the 1960s. In 2006, his book, Paint It Black, The Murder of Brian Jones, was made into a film by Stephen Woolley and Nick Powell entitled Stoned, The Wild and Wicked World of Brian Jones. It remains a cult classic and the only film bio of the Rolling Stones. Giuliano is also a veteran journalist, having written for dozens of high-profile newspapers and magazines, including The Sunday People, The Daily Mail, The News of the World, The Mail on Sunday, Playgirl, and Rolling Stone. A noted film actor, Giuliano starred in such movies as Vikingdom, Scorpion King 3, Jules Verne's The Mysterious Island, The Fifth Execution, Far Cry 3, Fire Desire, among many. In addition, he hosted the long-running North American syndicated radio series, Geoffrey Giuliano's Roots of Rock, for 5 years, as well as pioneering the audiobook industry in the 1990s by authoring, narrating, and producing over 250 original, non-book-based, interview-driven productions. Giuliano's publishers included Random House, HarperCollins, Delta Entertainment, Durkin Hayes, Playaway Audio, Speechworks, and B&B Audio, among dozens more internationally. In 1998, Random House acquired his firm Tribute Audio, for which Giuliano acted as CEO and publisher for 5 years. His best-selling audiobook, That Fateful Night, True Stories of Titanic Survivors in Their Own Words, was nominated for a Grammy. In 2014, Geoffrey Giuliano founded Icon Editions and G2 Media Arts to market his updated works as well as publish new projects. As a visual artist, Geoffrey has been showing in galleries across America since 1977, garnering impressive reviews. His first professional assignment was designing several T-shirts for The Who's Pete Townsend in 1976. Geoffrey also designed and illustrated many of his original rock biographies for the biggest publishers in the world from 1984 to 2006, as well as designing for his pioneering record label, Samba Records, in the mid-1990s. From 2006 to 2011, Geoffrey was also the primary designer for the French fashion house Cotai. When Giuliano first conceived of creating his own literary imprint, Icon Editions, he became responsible for illustrating and designing 35 book covers, several hundred CDs, DVDs, as well as dozens of promotional posters, and eventually an entire collection of exclusive fashion and art. The expansive Design by Giuliano brand grew out of Geoffrey's impressive commitment to the arts and is the culmination of a lifetime's work by an extraordinarily talented and determined Renaissance man.